Hola, amigos. About 4 years ago, I got a message from a designer in Colombia who said she'd like to work with Startup CPG to build her reputation in the US. I couldn't believe how affordable her pricing was, and the quality looked top-notch. I started work with them for Startup CPG and then a bunch of my other CPG projects as well. Fast forward to today, they are the most beloved agency in our Startup CPG community. They've got dozens of happy customers like Prickly and so many more. I recommend them to absolutely anybody who will listen because the combo of top-notch quality and very reasonable pricing is exactly what you want as a startup brand. You can hire them for branding, packaging, your website, or they actually have an awesome startup package that will do all three. If you want to learn more, email them at startupcpg@wagondesignstudio.com or check the show notes. You could also post on our Slack for feedback and just be overwhelmed by how many people want to sing their praises. Gracias, Wagon!
We're not a cool kid brand. We're like a helper in your kitchen. But I think what makes us special is like we have like an open rate that's like 10 times higher than average. Because we really provide, like we're truly an educational platform. We approach it as you have a problem in the kitchen and we're here to help you solve it and feel like we've just saved you time and energy and money and like despair.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Startup CPG podcast. This is Grace, and I'm here with another founder feature. Today, I'm talking to Allie, the founder of Haven's Kitchen. Allie started Haven's Kitchen over a decade ago as a kitchen cooking school and event space, but she later pivoted to a CPG brand after so many of her students asked her to sell the sauces she was teaching them to make at home. They now have a line of delicious flavor shortcuts, including their new Aiolis. Having been in the industry for so long, Allie is a wealth of knowledge. We talk all about pivoting products, the nitty-gritty details about sustainable packaging, the mental challenges that come with being a founder, and so much more. I hope you enjoy this episode, and as always, let me know what you think. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Startup CPG podcast. This is Grace, and I am here with another founder feature. Today, I'm talking to Allie, the founder of Haven's Kitchen. Haven's Kitchen makes better-for-you flavor shortcuts for busy people, and they recently launched a line of delicious Aiolis. So welcome to the show, Allie.
Thank you, Grace. Happy to be here.
Yes, so excited to have you here. So I'd love to begin with Haven's Kitchen's origin story. I know you began as a kitchen cooking school over a decade ago. So can you walk us through how you began Haven's Kitchen and then also how it became what it is today? Which I know that's a long story because, like I said, it's over a decade ago, but some of the origin.
Yes. Well, I was born in, it is a long story and I'm long-winded, but I'll try to be concise. Basically, I went back to get a master's degree in food systems and sustainability, food policy, gastronomy, everything kind of related to food called food studies. As part of that, I had to get an internship, which was funny because I had 5 kids under 10 at the time, and ended up as the head of the education station at the Union Square Green Market, which was kind of perfect and amazing. And I had been teaching cooking to friends and friends of friends, starting even back in college. So now I was also teaching, farm labor practices and agriculture and, the difference between local and organic and biodynamic and all of these really fun things. And this was 2010. And then I basically decided, I want to kind of combine my love of cooking with all of this stuff that I feel like people should know because home cooking is good for you, your community, the environment, really the planet. And those connections were just starting to form with Michael Pollan and Alice Waters. Even Instagram was starting to make like food and cooking kind of like sexy again. So I ended up opening a brick and mortar cooking school, not for professional cooks, but just for people who wanted to come and learn how to make dinner. I took people on farmers market tours, and we would bring back the things that we bought at the market and be like, what do you think we should make with this? And just get people kind of comfortable. And we ended up having a cafe and a private event space. We did like 300 events a year. What we ended up doing and being really good at were these, what were called activations, which I had never heard of, for all these brands, everything from Siggy's to Instacart to L'Oreal to Care of, Away, Casper, you name it. We had events, and they were sort of, how do you take a brand and sort of channel it into a experience, really. And we were quite good at it. And so I was starting to get exposed to CPG through the cooking school, and then wrote a cookbook in 2017. And basically, I guess our students kept saying, we've subscribed to these meal kits. We keep unsubscribing. They're not helping us. I don't like the feeling of this. I do like the sauces. Um, and the other sort of big data point was, okay, now I understand how to like grill a piece of fish or make some vegetables, but this chimichurri that you've taught me is just a lot of ingredients and mincing, and I'm not quite sure what the acid salt balance should be. And can you just put these in quart containers and sell them to us? So we did. We sold pesto, romesco, like a peanut Thai sauce, a chimichurri, all of these different sauces in this little refrigerator in the front cafe. And, someone along the way was like, you should package these. And I did. And then we were in 14 Whole Foods and Fresh Direct with them in 2018. And then we went national with Whole Foods the first week of the pandemic in 2020,
Oh my God.
which was fascinating. And then I closed the cooking school, and now we're a CPG company.
Wow.
And that,
Yeah.
so that was all, that was a 12-year journey.
Yeah. You've seen a lot, probably. You've seen
I've
a lot
seen
of changes
Yeah. Yeah.
throughout the industry, outside of the industry, just in food in general, probably. And I do love that concept of the sauces themselves, because it's so true. Sometimes you're like, I would love an herby sauce, but am I really going to buy and chop 4 different herbs?
Right. Yeah. And,
Maybe not.
I think a lot of what gets in the way, when you have, I don't know, 7 classes a week, 14 people in a class, you start to learn why people cook, why people don't cook, what their fears are, what their concerns are. It's really time. It's time. It's a little confidence. I'm going to buy those herbs and I'm going to mince them all and I'm going to have to deal with the cleanup. But what if it doesn't taste great and I don't know how to like fix it? There's this fear of sort of like putting energy into something that doesn't work. So that's our whole mission, is like that sweet spot where someone decides not to cook because they don't want to do that little last mile. We're the last mile.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to put that too. And I'm sure is super helpful for so many consumers. So one thing I wanted to return to is when you decided to actually start packaging and selling these sauces, you were selling them from Haven's Kitchen, the brick and mortar, maybe out of these quart containers or whatever.
Yeah.
How did you transition then from this sort of like ad hoc, we're selling these sauces, to, okay, no, this is a full, this is a full thing now? How did that transition work?
It's funny because now there are resources like you. I started a podcast like the month that I had my first PO in 2018 because no one taught us how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a ton of information available. So I think I was in a really fortunate situation where Chobani had their incubator party at Haven's. Sir Kensington's had done product launches at Haven's Kitchen. Like, I knew enough to be able to sort of reach out to a couple of these folks and just start asking questions. I was also really lucky that John Lawson from Whole Foods like found us and championed us because, once I figured out, I knew enough to know that because of my sustainability background, obviously a quart container was not a good choice as a package, but neither were glass jars or bottles. Like I know enough to know that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I ended up researching pouch packaging, life cycle studies on pouch packaging. It's just a much, much like lower impact packaging option. So I knew that. Finding pouches, finding pouch pillars, learning about high pressure pasteurization, because I wanted as fresh and clean of a product as possible. And it just wasn't being done.
Mm-hmm.
So at the beginning, it was, we were making it in an incubator kitchen. We were putting it on a cold truck to a HPP facility in New Jersey. Like the margins were not good. But you learn. There was just a lot of research to be done. And I remember, John actually saying, okay, I get the pouch. I think it's good, but they're going to tip over on the shelf. So you need to put it in a corrugate. So it sits on the shelf. And I was like, what is that? And he was like, the chocolate bars on the count, it was all just really to learn. And then you kind of go, everything in this industry, I think is like you do a little, you see if it works. If it works, you go to the next step. And if you go to the next step, then every next step has to be a little bit of like improvement in margins, improvement in systems, efficiency is the name of the game. But it was a long journey,
Totally. And it's so true that you do just have to ask questions, and you do have to be okay with getting incrementally better with each step, and knowing that it's not going to be some 0 to 100, like 0 to nothing to 100 perfect. It's going to be step by step, asking questions, people helping you. And one thing I wanted to return to, because I see a lot of CPG brands that are delicious, but they do come in glass jars, and they often, I'm a shelfies judge, so sometimes they'll arrive and they'll have been shattered, which is always a bummer. But I'd love to hear more about that distinction between the pouch and like a glass jar, for example, and why the pouch is more sustainable and maybe even better for efficiencies on your end. Because I see a lot of brands starting with glass jars, and I always want to be like, maybe don't.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a really reductive culture, right? So we've been taught over the last 30 years, plastic is bad, glass is good.
Mm.
Glass is, indefinitely recyclable. You never, ever have to throw glass out because you can use it in your house for everything. I'm curious as to how many people actually take those glass jars that they use and like have them all over their home filled with thumbtacks and things like that. Maybe one yogurt jar here and there, the problem is that about, 20% of glass actually gets recycled municipally. And so to be clear, we are not even talking about hard plastic jars because those are absolutely the worst. Like they're just bad. They're bad for everything. They're easy squeezy and that's fun and consumers really like them, but I wouldn't ever put anything in a hard plastic.
Yeah.
When you look at sort of like the overall sustainability of a package, right? It's very easy to say, is it recyclable, quote unquote, yes or no. But really what you have to do is look at the life cycle. So that just is a kind of fancy word for saying like, what are the inputs that go into making this? How much energy, how much water, what's used for it, right? And then what are the inputs into shipping it? And this is where glass really fails because there's, if you just think about the weight of the package and how bulky it is, and then how much you need to wrap it to make sure that they're not, clinking against each other and breaking, as you said, you end up with like, I don't know, 80% fewer emissions just caused by the trucks that transport volume to volume of pouch to glass.
Wow.
So just think about the amount of fuel you need to use and then the emissions that you produce. We also, because, of my background, we found a company called TerraCycle. If you as a consumer wants to guarantee that your pouch is converted into a park bench or a dock, you simply email TerraCycle, you type in, Haven's Kitchen, they send you an envelope, you put your pouches in, we guarantee 100%. But right now, pouch packaging is not basically recycled by municipal plants because they don't get the money that they would like for it. And, we're behind. Obviously, Europe is filled with pouch packaging, even Asia, which isn't necessarily like on the cutting edge of environmental policy. But I think part of it is also because it's lightweight, because it doesn't break, there's less food waste. It's easier for the consumer, certainly easier for e-com.
Yeah.
So I'm really bullish on it. I think right now it's a very long supply chain and it's a lot more expensive than glass. And you don't get credit for it from the consumer in terms of like the premium that you might pay for something organic or but that's sort of one of my values that just doesn't, unfortunately, I know too much about
Totally.
packaging.
Yeah. And you kind of can't close your eyes once you know. And that was definitely a big eye opener for me as a consumer, just seeing how little of what we put in our recycling bins gets recycled.
Yeah.
And that was a depressing moment, but can help us make some better choices. And I think it's really useful to hear like some of the things we're taught that are better are not, it's not as black and white.
No, and the reality is there are some products that are better probably in glass than in a pouch. I'm never going to say it's the best for everything because I don't think that way. But I will say that a lot ends up in landfill, right? Like if you're and 80+% of what you throw out ends up in landfill. And you want to think about how much space in landfill, right, it's taking up, and the smaller the better. So the thinner the better, the flimsier the better. It's not great, but it's what we've got.
Totally. Yeah. And I appreciate too, even on your website, that you guys are so transparent about your choices and why you're doing what you're doing and just all the different decisions that go into these things so that consumers can understand why and what they're consuming. So sort of in another direction than the pouches and the packaging, you started with these flavor sauces, different herby, chimichurri, things like that. But like we mentioned in the beginning, you have recently launched a line of Aiolis. So I'd love to hear why did you decide to get into the aioli world, which I love aioli, so I'm thrilled about it. But what was the decision to say, okay, we've started with these sauces, now we're going to bring in aiolis? How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, necessity, really. So, when we launched the fresh sauces, the world was a little different. It was 2018. If you looked at every major grocer, they were really leaning into what was called fresh convenience. They knew that people wanted more global. They wanted cleaner ingredient panels. They wanted easy. They wanted convenient. They wanted not your mom's flavor sauce. And they wanted fresh because that's where, when e-commerce was first really getting started, they rightly predicted that consumers were probably going to be focused on the perimeter of the store during their shopping experiences because I can just buy bulk rice from whatever.com or Amazon. There were some grocery stores that predicted that they would have no center store, that they would have smaller footprints, much more fresh, and that everything center store and shelf stable would be basically on e-com. So they were trying to find incrementality in addition to sort of solving consumer problems. And so we were right on. We had everything that you looked in, sort of like what are the trends that are happening with the consumer in grocery. We just nailed it. Part of the challenge for us was that there was no category. So one of the things that I always say to people who ask about starting a new CPG brand is, where's it going to go on the shelf? Who's it next to in the store? And if your answer is, well, it could be here, or it could be here, or it kind of could go in a couple different places because there isn't anything like it, you're basically kind of like category busting. And you need a lot of money and a lot of time to do that. Case in point, Health-Ade Kombucha, Perfect Bar, right? It took them 10 to 12 years to create those categories. And arguably, people are still like, why is a bar in the refrigerator? So for us, sometimes we were produce, sometimes we were dairy, sometimes we were vegan, sometimes we're like the fermented food. No one knew where to put us, which means that two things. One, we don't understand our sort of category review calendar very well because it's confusing and there isn't one. Two, a buyer from produce can very easily say, I love this, it's great, but you know what? It should go in dairy. And the dairy buyer then is like, you know what? It should go in the deli, right? So it's, from a just retailer perspective, it's challenging. But I think most importantly is you cannot expect consumers to hunt for you. And this is the thing that like founders do all the time. We make the mistake of the spotlight effect. Someone's going to fall in love with my thing, and wherever they go, they're going to just be like, I got to find my thing, right? And that's not how people shop. They're used to, this is next to the cottage cheese, this is next to the, chickpea pasta. And we are in totally different places, even within some retailers, we're in different. So couple that with a pandemic that basically everything became like, what is shelf stable? What survives an apocalypse? What can I buy in bulk? What is going to give me comfort? What's going to just get me dinner fast on the table? And we had some tailwinds because people were trying our sauces because they were so bored of what they were making. But for the most part, that sort of like bigger picture move to fresh got waylaid. It also requires more frequent resets, which requires more labor in the store, right? If you just think it's a harder lift.
Yeah.
So for us, all of that coupled with we have 56 unique ingredients in our fresh SKUs. We have a refrigerated supply chain, which anyone will tell you is a little challenging. We have a 6-month shelf life, which is, better than a lot of fresh, but still hard. And so we sort of sat down with ourselves and we're like, all right, is this scalable? Can this be $100 million business? Because that's what it needs to get to for this to really, be a contender in a lot of ways. And I am not sure. I think it's a beautiful product. I think it's a little niche. It's a great natural channel product, but we had a little distribution in Target. We lost that distribution because it just didn't sell well to that set. We were next to Honey Mamas and, again, kimchi. And so people were confused,
Totally.
So what we decided to do was, take all of the good parts. It's globally inspired. It's super clean ingredient. It's delicious. It helps people make their meals better. It's that shortcut, that last mile of flavor, all of those things. But we kind of also mitigated for the problems. We need something stable. We need something that has a category that's large and potentially growing. We need to be consistent where we are on the shelf. We need fewer ingredients. We need simple use case. Like all of the stuff that we could learn from A, we put into B. And so here we are.
Are you paying a ton in shipping to send out products, samples, and whatever else? The fees really add up, but lucky for you, we now have a partner that gets you access to the discounted shipping rates that are usually only available to those big companies. I worked with them for my last beverage brand, and I can tell you they definitely got us savings. Whether you're sending overnight samples, fulfilling e-commerce orders, or even a 40-foot ocean container, our partner, Enterprise Purchasing Group, or EPG, has got you covered. There are a bunch of free benefits you can get by signing up with them. You can get up to an 86% discount on small parcel shipments from UPS, DHL Express, UPS, and more. You get really competitive LTL and FTL rates through UPS. You get discounted spot and fixed ocean rates through Flexport and Maersk. You get exclusive air freights, and you also get preferential terms with supply chain financing. All you need to do is reach out to Francis Agas. His email is francis, Francis, at enterprisepurchasing.com. Mention the Startup CPG discount and take advantage of those savings. Good luck, everybody, and happy shipping. And now, back to the show.
Wow, I love that. And I think it's a great lesson to any founder who's listening as well, that it's okay to love your first product and also recognize that there are problems in it and to pivot even without saying goodbye to your first product.
Totally.
Just adding something new and solving for some of those problems that were there. And I love that you were, willing to kind of acknowledge and take active steps to address and make a new product and change, because that's not an easy or simple thing to do, I'm sure.
It took a while. I'm not sure if this is just like folklore or if it's real, but apparently Kind Bar was like okay for the first 5 years. And then I think it was like it's could be like totally like folklore, but an intern who was like, why don't we put some chocolate in there? And then all of a sudden it was like the Kind Bar that we know today. And you just, you have to be willing to have certain things that my value system is intact. I was very clear on like the must-haves. But you can't have everything as a must-have. And you have to be willing to look at your product square in the eye and say, okay, we're not going forward here. We keep building velocity in Whole Foods because I think people really love it. But is that enough to be a business? I mean, it's a small business. Could it be a profitable business? Maybe. But is that the kind of business that I want to grow? No. And so it's time to add to the family. And as long as the first product is like doing well and chugging along and doesn't require a ton of resources, and we can focus on this second project, then it felt like a good plan.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And what has been the response so far in terms of like the retailers you work with or even customers who, know and love Haven's Kitchen? What's the response been like to the Aiolis?
I mean, it's been overwhelmingly wonderful. I have to say, it was like, I knew that we were bringing something really cool into the world. It's a vegan aquafaba based aioli. It has like real jalapeno and cilantro and ají amarillo and like real ingredients, beautiful, bold flavors that we're known for, but in this like really creamy, viscous, nice mayo-like base that happens to be vegan and also keto and also, gluten-free and non-GMO, like all of the things. And I think people, we must be onto something. Kraft launched a line of aioli. Primal launched a line of dipping sauces. Chosen, right? Like, we're not the only people that saw that the consumer is really looking for not just heat, but complexity. And they love condiments and they like a creamy texture to make their food more, palatable and more delicious. And so when we launched it, I knew Target was taking it. I knew Whole Foods was taking it. I knew, a couple of our like friendly Bristol farms and things like that. So I was able to launch with customers, which, is for me and for your listeners, like rule number one, don't build it and they will come because you don't have the cash to do that. So if you do have the cash to do that, mazel tov, but no one does. So yay. You need a customer so that you can have, real demand right from the beginning and you can get the right MOQs and all that. So I knew that the customers were there. The consumers, I think, were overwhelmingly excited and positive. We can market in a different way. Expo West was like electrifying. We also launched at a time where there was just this new Mintel report about how little innovation there is right now, like true innovation. And we really made something that hasn't existed. And so it's not just another thing. It's like really new to the world.
Totally.
And so it's been really fun.
So exciting. And yeah, I think my favorite one I tried was the herby yuzu aioli. That was delicious. And anybody who's listening, you should check them out. But something I wanted to touch on that you mentioned is the marketing side of these things. And particularly, again, as you're saying, with cash is tight and paid ads continue to get more and more expensive and harder to navigate. So how have you been approaching, getting Haven's Kitchen in front of customers and in their faces with social media, with marketing in general?
Yeah. So this is another thing that I would heavily advise, just based on experience. There's this funnel, right? Top of the funnel is sort of like a blimp or an ad on Instagram to, New York, right? That's top of the funnel. Bottom of the funnel is, a sign on your product at checkout that says buy two, get one, and here's a free recipe. Or bottom of the funnel is like a Instacart banner ad where people are already shopping for food, but they see chicken and they see our sauce on it. We have only spent on bottom of the funnel. Like there's no reason with a fresh product that does not have any D2C capability, that is not widely distributed, to spend on awareness. Because what you end up having is a lot of frustrated people. Our number one complaint in our inbox is, I can't find you. I don't know where to find you. And it's like very upsetting to get, even I'm in a Whole Foods and I don't see you, like it's really tough.
Yeah.
So, that was another reason why Shelf Stable opens up a world of opportunity for us, because the minute that we launched Shelf Stable, we also launched it on Amazon, which is we do through our Shopify, so that we have sort of the first party data that you would get with D2C, but we also have the awareness building that you get with Amazon. And now we can actually spend a little on that sort of top of funnel stuff because we have one click away from an Amazon cart. But I would say still 85 to 90% of our spend is on right where someone's already doing grocery shopping, where we know they can find our product, where they can just add it to their cart. That's the money for us. And I think I would advise, it's very fun and sexy to do the big stuff, to get a billboard, it's fun to see your product that big. But it's just not, in my opinion, sort of the best use of money if you are primarily distributed through retail, not through your own direct to consumer.
We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to announce that Startup CPG finally has an official Amazon agency partner. I know a lot of you are looking to Amazon as a great growth channel for this year and beyond, and Daybreak is the best agency that I've come across that will work with emerging brands. They have a really affordable retainer structure. It's a lot less than you'll find with other agencies that might charge you upwards of $5,000 a month, which is crazy. Based on recommendations from this community, I actually worked with Leon for my own brand and had an amazing experience. The sales grew very quickly. We started ranking really high on organic search results and really just capturing search terms in the category. I think he is an amazing fit for brands in this community, and I highly recommend reaching out to him for a chat. You can reach out to him at leon@daybreak.agency. That's LEON at Daybreak, DAYBREAK.agency. Make sure you mention us at Startup CPG so that you can get $600 of free design credits if you end up working with them. Good luck. And now back to the show.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think is probably, applicable to so many CPG brands that are not really, because I would say I feel like most CPG brands I talk to are not as focused on their DTC, right? They're more focused on retail. Even when they say, like Amazon can be great for awareness, but even then it's probably not the bulk of your sales, right? So I think that's great advice. And another thing I wanted to ask about was just like your approach to social media in general. I think a lot of founders are like, what do I do on social media? And so your approach on your own account, obviously Haven's Kitchen, but also have you worked with any UGC, worked with any influencers or creators? How have you approached like social media marketing for Haven's Kitchen?
So just to be clear, I am not a social media expert. I'm like squarely middle-aged and I don't have Instagram or TikTok or anything myself. I have someone on my team, Ashley, who runs all of that, and she's amazing at it and just seems to know. Yeah, she like started work and got us like 40,000 TikTok followers like the next week. And, I'm a little bit like, I don't even know what it all means, but I do know that the idea of brand love, right? Mike Gelb talks about brand love. The idea that there's this groundswell of appreciation for your product, right? I mean, I think everyone knows Graza just like knocked that one out of the park from the minute that they were in the world. And I think Kendall is just like a freaking guru. But, I don't know. I think for us, we're not a cool kid brand. We're like a helper in your kitchen. And we've always approached things like, it's not, okay, if you use our sauce, that makes you somehow, cool, right? We approach it as you have a problem in the kitchen and we're here to help you solve it and feel like we've just saved you time and energy and money and like despair. And, I don't think that translates to virality or, I've got to follow this beauty brand kind of thing. But I think what makes us special is like we have 60,000 people on our email list and we have like an open rate that's like umpteen times higher than average because we really provide help. Like we're truly an educational platform. And, I think that the social stuff is going to be better told by people who love your product and use it. So we do love UGC. We just don't pay for it. We build relationships with content creators. We send them product. We feature them. But we've just never been the type of company to go spend $10,000 on someone who's, a celebrity of some sort to say, use this sauce. Like, I don't think it works like that for us. So finding what does work for us and which channels do work for us. We have 200,000 followers on Pinterest. That was sort of a leftover of being a cooking school and a wedding venue in a lot of ways, but we've managed to channel those people into our mailing list. And, it's a little different. But we're, I don't think everyone can compete in that TikTok world. And again, I say that from my perspective, which is like Gen X, everyone's crazy.
Totally. Yeah.
So,
and I think it is good advice though to know your purpose, right? Like you're the education, you're like, hey, we have recipes for you to use and here's how to use our sauces and here's the different ways that like we can help you versus the like a status symbol of having this product or of having that thing. And I think that's so important to recognize in your approach to social media and your approach to marketing in general. Like it makes sense to me that Pinterest would be huge for you guys also because that's where a lot of people go for recipes. That's where you save all these different things. So that makes a lot of sense. And it's cool to hear the different avenues that, are available to brands sort of no matter where you fall on the spectrum of like helper or status or niche or whatever. So that makes a lot of sense. Thinking as we are sort of nearing the end, a question I always love to ask every founder is just, what has been one of the biggest challenges of starting Haven's Kitchen, running Haven's Kitchen? I'm sure there are many, but I think it's helpful for people to hear that, you know, no matter how long you're in this business, there's always challenges. So what's been one of the biggest challenges in running Haven's Kitchen?
Yeah. So I think founders in general, you know, I've met hundreds of them, right, over the last however many years. We are, we like to be good at stuff. We like to create things that haven't existed in the world before because we believe that the world will be better with them. We almost have to have an irrational sort of optimism, because we're entering an industry that there's no one's kidding anybody. Like, this is a hard industry to be in. And it's gotten much harder in the last 18 months. You know, everything kind of got a little covered up when there was a lot of money flowing into it. Now you're supposed to be, you know, growth and profitable and appeal to young people and appeal to old people, have a great, you know, unit economics on e-com, but also know how to, you know, have a great price sloping mechanism for distribution. You're supposed to be everything, everywhere, all at once. And in general, you know, I would say you get punched in the face 7 times in a row and then you get a win, you know? And right now it's more like you're getting punched in the face 9 times in a row and you're getting a win, you know? And the win used to feel better. And now the win is just kind of like, okay, great. We had a lift on our promo, you know, super. So I think for me, the biggest challenge, you know, there's challenges with everything, but I think the biggest challenge is a mental one. And I can say wholeheartedly that I have gone through some weeks where I just don't know if I'm depressed or if I'm burnt out or if I'm just bad at my job or if I'm just climbing up an impossible mountain and getting hit in the face by like the trees. And the only way that I have learned to mitigate that is by having a very close set of 3 or 4 other founders in different categories who you meet religiously with every month or 2 months, and you are 100% honest. You're not going to be able to be 100% honest with your team. Your family, they love you. They do not want to hear. They just don't. They say they're interested. They say they support you, and they do. They don't want to hear it at dinner. They want you to be present. Your partner, if they are not in this industry, will look at you like you are absolutely off your rocker. Marriages break up, right? Like, and so, you know, your friends don't know what you do. No one knows what we do. It's like the number of decisions we make in a day would just confound people. So it is overwhelming. It is exhausting. And then layer on top of it, our job is like chief fundraiser, cheerleader, visionary, team leader, head of sales. We're supposed to also be good at Excel. Like it's just too much for a person. And the ones that are, you know, and then you add to it sort of this shiny, happy media version that you see, and it can make you feel really bad about yourself and really doubt everything that you've ever come to believe, really. But that group of people, that is the first thing you do to get yourself sane. You find them, you trust them, they can trust you. And my group of that, you know, has changed everything because there are days where I am absolutely sure that I don't want to do this anymore. And then there are days where I'm like, oh my gosh, we've just made something miraculous and people love it. And that's to be expected. There's just no straight line.
Yeah, no, that's, I think, so useful for founders to hear, and knowing you're not alone. And I think really great advice to have that little support group of fellow founders that you meet with. And they need to start at like Founders Anonymous, where you can go anywhere in the country and meet in person, or you can just find your own little group. But that's really great advice, and useful, I think, for people to hear. But so on the flip side, as we wrap up, what are you most excited about Haven's Kitchen coming down the pipeline in the, second half of this year and wrapping up this year? I guess the year keeps going faster and faster. But yeah, what are you most excited about for Haven's Kitchen?
Well, I'm going into review season, so that's my thing. I love meeting my retailers. I love showing them our velocity. I love showing them sort of category trends, consumer behavior.
Yeah.
I love it. So I'm jazzed up. I get really kind of like sad and cranky when I don't have any reviews. I'm just like waiting. I would say that, the company right now, the product that we have right now that's taking off, the product we have right behind it that's formulated, ready to go when we have, the cash and the customer, we're really in a unique position as a pantry platform that isn't of one region or of one type of sauce we can be kind of anywhere. And I just don't see a, Betty Crocker for home cooks out there. There's a lot of great sauces and condiments, and I love playing with all of them. And I'm like, I really love being in this world because it's not a zero sum or a winner take all. Like, we all play well together, which makes me really happy. And, if you just picture Haven's Kitchen in your kitchen, we can be sort of that helper, like we said at the beginning, for busy people who want better for you, who want big flavor, who want convenient, anywhere, whenever they're making anything. And I think we've never been better poised to be that platform brand. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that's super exciting. And I think it's true. Like, we don't have a one-stop shop of pantry items. And so exciting to see what else you might be coming up with and behind the scenes. But where can people find Haven's Kitchen if they want to learn more, or if they want to buy your sauces or Aiolis?
Well, the fun thing is we just launched, and everyone's going to be like, the margin, but we just launched single SKUs. So we have single pouches on Amazon. You can try one. You don't have to buy a case of 4. You don't have to spend $30 some odd. You can buy one pouch and give it a shot on Amazon, which is really exciting. That's brand new. We haven't even talked about that on social yet. We're at about 650 targets nationally. On the West Coast, we're in Bristol. Anyway, couple of retailers on the West Coast, and then in Florida, Whole Foods, the Northeast Whole Foods. And obviously we have a store locator on our website. Amazing. But we're really proud, really, really proud. It's delicious. I use the sunshine chili every single night. I just love it. Amazing.
Well, yeah, everybody should check it out either on Amazon, or if they have a store nearby, follow Haven's Kitchen on social media. Maybe they'll see some of Ashley, the social media maven's work on there. And yeah, it was so much fun to chat with you, Allie.
Thank you for having me. It's this great resource. So it's really good stuff. People.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, it would help us out so much if you left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I am Grace Kennedy, the editor for Startup CPG, so feel free to add me on LinkedIn or reach out to me on Slack. I'm always on the hunt for new and exciting brands to feature. And if you're a potential sponsor that would like to appear on the podcast, please email partnerships@startupcpg.com. And finally, as a reminder for anyone listening, if you haven't already, we would love for you to join our community on Slack, and you can sign up via our website, startupcpg.com.